For the past few years, our focus has been, understandably, locked on the lungs as the main target for COVID-19. But what if that's only half the story? Today, we're going to dive into some pretty groundbreaking research that's shifting our attention to a much more surprising battlefield. What if the key to how sick someone gets, why they have that cough, the breathing problems, and even those lingering symptoms of long COVID, what if it's all being influenced by a war happening somewhere else in the body entirely? Yep, that's right, your gut, the trillions of microbes that live inside your digestive system. So let's explore how a respiratory virus wages this hidden and absolutely critical war right in our gut. Okay, so first things first, how does the virus even get there? I mean, we think of SARS-CoV-2 as something we breathe in, right? So how does it end up setting up shop deep inside our intestines? Well, the answer comes down to these things called ACE2 receptors. The easiest way to think of them is like little locks on the surface of our cells. And the virus? It has the key. Now here's the twist. While our lungs have these locks, it turns out our intestines are absolutely covered in them. And this image right here shows you the virus's entire game plan. SARS-CoV-2 uses that famous spike protein to latch onto one of those ACE2 receptors on a gut cell. Once it's locked on, it gets pulled inside, where it completely hijacks the cell's machinery to make millions and millions of new copies of itself. This isn't just a sideshow, it's a full-on invasion of the gut. But see, once the virus is inside our gut cells, it doesn't just replicate and call it a day. Oh no. It triggers this massive cascade of events that throws the entire ecosystem of our gut microbiome into total chaos. And there's a name for this imbalance. It's called dysbiosis. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. On the left, you've got a healthy gut. Think of it like a thriving rainforest, teeming with different species all working together, keeping the barrier strong and sealed. But then you look at a gut under attack by COVID-19, and it's a completely different story. Diversity just plummets, the bad guys, opportunistic pathogens start taking over, and that strong intestinal wall begins to break down, leading to what scientists call a leaky gut. And get this, we actually know the names of some of these key players. The good guys that get wiped out include bacteria like Faecalibacterium prausnitzia, which are awesome at producing these anti-inflammatory compounds. But when they're gone, opportunistic pathogens like Enterococcus and E. coli see their chance, and they start to flourish, actively stirring up inflammation. So here's the absolute kicker. This chaos doesn't just stay in the gut and cause, digestive issues. No, this breakdown sets off a chain reaction, like a series of dominoes falling that directly slams the lungs and really our entire body. You know that old saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? Well, for a long time, we kind of thought the same thing about the gut. But we now know that is 100% not the case. The consequences of this mess are systemic, and they travel far and wide. This brings us to this incredible concept called the gut-lung axis. Remember that leaky gut we just mentioned? Well, that leaky barrier allows bacterial fragments and toxins, like this stuff called LPS, to escape the intestines and get into our bloodstream. And where do they go? They travel all over, but they're detected by immune cells in the lungs, which then go into a total panic, triggering a huge inflammatory response. And that is what's behind the infamous cytokine storm you've probably heard about. It's not always the virus itself doing the most damage. It's our own immune system going completely haywire. And this research shows that the fire is literally being fueled by the chaos starting in the gut, making everything in the lungs so much worse. But the story doesn't end there, unfortunately. For millions of people, this gut disruption doesn't just fix itself when the initial infection is over. The battle in the gut just lingers. And it's now seen as a major driver of long COVID. 65 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. An estimated 65 million people worldwide are living with long COVID, dealing with this bewildering mix of symptoms that can go on for months, even years. And their gut is a prime suspect. Let's talk about one of the most common and, frankly, debilitating symptoms, brain fog. That feeling of fatigue, confusion, and just cognitive impairment. How on earth could bacteria in your gut be responsible for that? Well, the answer lies in another one of these incredible connections, the gut-brain axis. That persistent low-grade inflammation that started in the damaged gut doesn't stop at the lungs. Those inflammatory molecules can travel all the way up and cross the protective blood-brain barrier, causing what's known as neuroinflammation and disrupting how our brain functions. That's the biological reason for brain fog. Okay, so if a messed up microbiome is a huge part of the problem, could fixing it be the solution? This is where the science gets really exciting and honestly, pretty hopeful. What's cool is that scientists are basically becoming microbiome detectives. They're finding that specific patterns of bacteria can act as clues or biomarkers. So, for example, if they see high levels of something like streptococcus, that might be a red flag for a bad inflammatory response. Or if they see low levels of these good guys, like Faecalibacterium, they know the gut barrier is probably in trouble. This could totally change how we diagnose and predict how severe the disease will be. And all this detective work is opening the door to some incredible future therapies. We're talking about things like using specific probiotics to send in reinforcements and restore balance, or using prebiotics, which are basically food to help our remaining good bacteria thrive. And even more advanced ideas like fecal microbiota transplantation, FMT, which is like giving a patient's gut a complete microbial reset from a healthy donor. All this research really forces you to step back and ask a profound question. We usually think of medicine as something external, right? A pill we swallow, a shot we get. But what if some of the most powerful medicine we could ever have is already living inside of us, just waiting for us to understand it and help it get back into balance? The story of COVID and the gut suggests the future of medicine might look very, very different.